While bombs fall on Ukraine, a $300 million superyacht is quietly refueling in Dubai, stocked with caviar and champagne. How? Because for Russia's elite, the war isn't a tragedy, it's just an expensive logistical problem. Despite global sanctions meant to freeze their wealth, Russian oligarchs are living in absolute luxury right now. They aren't hiding in bunkers, they're playing a multi-billion-dollar shell game across 100 different countries to keep the champagne flowing. In this video, we're exposing the exact three-layer system they use to fund their lavish lifestyles during wartime. Financial camouflage, secret lifestyle adaptations, and the dark psychology that lets them justify spending millions, all while their country wages war. When 71 oligarch-controlled companies continue to operate through approximately 1,800 affiliated entities spread across 100 different countries, you're not looking at simple bank accounts. You're looking at the most sophisticated wealth-hiding machinery ever built. The basic formula is deceptively simple. Take one oligarch, add 9 layers of shell companies, and suddenly a yacht becomes owned by a company in the British Virgin Islands, which is owned by a trust in Cyprus, which is managed by a firm in Malta, which reports to an entity in Panama. Jurisdictions like the Bahamas, Bermuda, Caymans, and the Isle of Man are used to add another wall between the oligarch and their assets. Here's where it gets fascinating. They don't just hide ownership, they hide the hiding. Take Rosneft, Russia's oil giant. By its own annual report, Rosneft lists only 22 subsidiaries, 3 of which are located in tax havens. Yet, using algorithmic analysis, researchers identified 632 Rosneft subsidiaries, with 71 located in tax havens. That's not an accounting error, that's architectural deception. But the real genius happens at the human level. You use family members as proxies, trusted associates as nominal owners, and professional enablers as fronts. Enforcement records show sanctioned individuals retaining absolute control over trusts through family members who act as proxies. The oligarch never officially owns anything, but they control everything through a network of people who owe their wealth to staying loyal. Consider how this works for luxury purchases. You want to buy a $50 million Monet. Your daughter's art investment company, registered in Luxembourg and managed by your former university roommate, makes the purchase. The company is funded by a loan from a Cayman Islands entity, which gets its money from cryptocurrency trades executed by a firm in Singapore that your nephew technically owns. The painting hangs in your London penthouse, but legally, you've never touched it. Real estate follows the same pattern. Sanctioned oligarchs simply transfer nominal ownership of real estate to non-sanctioned family members and related shell companies. An oligarch sells their Manhattan apartment to their brother-in-law's Delaware LLC for $1, then immediately signs a 99-year lease to live there for another $1 per year. Legally, they're renters. Practically, they're still living in their own home. Geographic arbitrage becomes the final layer. Researchers identified 432 international investors that continued to pump money into oligarch-affiliated firms, including major investment and asset managers in London, New York, and Frankfurt. They continue managing oligarch wealth, often hiding behind plausible deniability. The most audacious part: they often hide in plain sight. In June 2023, one sanctioned oligarch coordinated with an intermediary to sell frozen shares in a European company. Within weeks, a new Russian financial services firm was established as a subsidiary of that intermediary. They're not just evading sanctions, they're conducting complex financial engineering while under active government surveillance. So now you can spot the patterns when oligarch assets mysteriously appear in non-sanctioned names. Look for the tells. Newly formed companies with opaque ownership structures, family members suddenly acquiring expensive tastes, and complex international transactions that serve no obvious business purpose except moving money. The wealth doesn't disappear, it just gets a very expensive makeover. Given all those shell companies and family proxies we just covered, do you think most oligarchs genuinely believe they're following the law? Or do they know exactly what they're doing? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's look at how this financial camouflage translates into their actual day-to-day luxury lifestyle. Once you've built this elaborate wealth-hiding machinery, you still have to live with yourself. And that's where the psychology gets truly fascinating. Oligarchs operate through a balancing act between business as usual, cautious pacifism, and humanitarian initiatives. They've developed mental frameworks that allow them to compartmentalize their luxury spending as completely separate from political consequences. They don't see themselves as funding a war machine, they see themselves as maintaining essential business capabilities during temporary geopolitical turbulence. The rationalization process works in layers. First, there's the business continuity framework. My yacht isn't a luxury, it's a mobile office where I conduct international negotiations. The $50 million floating palace becomes a diplomatic asset essential for maintaining Russia's economic relationships. When hosting potential partners from Dubai or Singapore, the caviar and champagne are reframed as cultural necessities for closing deals that keep thousands of Russians employed. Then there's the social signaling within oligarch circles themselves. Within this group, maintaining visible luxury becomes a form of economic confidence signaling. If you stop flying private or downgrade your accommodations, other oligarchs interpret this as weakness or impending financial collapse. In their world, conspicuous consumption isn't vanity, it's business intelligence. Your competitors need to see that sanctions haven't actually touched you. The psychological compartmentalization goes even deeper. Many oligarchs have convinced themselves that their wealth preservation is actually patriotic. The logic goes, if I let the West destroy my assets, I'm letting them win. They frame their shell company machinations not as sanction evasion, but as strategic asset protection, for the eventual benefit of Russia. The war has made Russia's elite more vulnerable to a Kremlin that knows the super-rich have fewer options. But psychologically, many oligarchs have flipped this vulnerability into a narrative of necessity, believing Putin needs successful businessmen now more than ever. Social media provides a perfect window into these mental gymnastics. Watch how sanctioned oligarchs post online. They don't show off wealth directly. Instead, they share images of business meetings in exotic locations, cultural exchanges at expensive restaurants, or philanthropic events at luxury resorts. Every post is carefully framed to suggest the spending serves a higher purpose. The $10,000 dinner isn't about the truffle course, it's about fostering international understanding. The most revealing behavioral tell is how they respond to criticism. When pressed about their lifestyle choices, they genuinely seem confused by the moral questions. They'll say things like, "I'm a businessman, not a politician. My responsibility is to my employees. How does punishing successful Russians help anyone?" This isn't calculated deflection, it's genuine cognitive dissonance. They've so thoroughly compartmentalized their wealth from the war that they literally cannot understand why anyone would expect them to connect the two. The final layer is moral licensing. Having made token gestures toward humanitarian causes, perhaps donating to Russian orphanages or funding cultural programs, they feel they've earned the right to continue their luxury spending guilt-free. It's elaborate psychological bookkeeping that allows them to maintain their self-image as fundamentally good people who just happen to live extremely well. Through years of psychological conditioning, they've created mental worlds where their luxury spending is justified and practically necessary for Russia's economic survival. Unmasking this level of elite deception proves that global rules are often only meant for ordinary people. Subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of extreme wealth.